Hello, welcome to the first installment of our training series on electronic UPR advocacy. In this first training, we'll give a brief overview of the process. My name is Carter Mickelson, and I am a program assistant at the Advocates for Human Rights.
And my name is Elizabeth Lacey, and I am Program Associate at the Advocates for Human Rights.
The Advocates for Human Rights serves on the steering committee of the World Coalition Against the Death Penalty. In that capacity, we collaborate with members of the coalition who want assistance engaging in advocacy at the United Nations. This video is part of a series of trainings designed to build coalition members' capacity to engage in that advocacy at the United Nations. Even if you're not a member of the World Coalition, you can engage in this advocacy. The subject of this training will be electronic UPR advocacy and will be in 4 parts: an overview, identifying countries to target, writing a one-pager, and sending emails. We will start with the overview in this video. This training will cover a few major issues related to electronic lobbying. Firstly, a brief overview of the UPR process and what constitutes electronic lobbying. Secondly, we will go over how to identify countries to target. Thirdly, we'll go over how to create a one-pager, which is a common type of advocacy document. And we will conclude by discussing best practices for contacting state delegations.
So if you've watched our other trainings on the process of the Universal Periodic Review, you'll recognize this graphic showing the 5-year cycle of the UPR. If you'd like to learn more about the UPR, we have a full training on our YouTube channel that goes a little bit more in depth. But as you can see here, the first step in this process is to submit a written stakeholder report. Now, you might have submitted a report about 6 months ago, but if you didn't submit a report, you can still conduct advocacy at other stages of the UPR. So for instance, we are currently in the second stage of the process, which involves the interactive dialogue. During the interactive dialogue, the country under review receives recommendations from governments around the world and is required to respond to them. Diplomats must decide what issues they're going to address in that short amount of time that they have to speak during the interactive dialogue. And this is where civil society can play an important role. So you can lobby state delegations to make recommendations about issues in your country, even from outside Geneva. And that's what we're going to talk about in this series of trainings. As you can see from this graphic representing 2021, there are 3 Human Rights Council sessions that happen in February, in June, and in September, roughly. The sessions of the Universal Periodic Review Working Group occur in between those sessions in January, May, and November. Delegations generally begin deciding on their recommendations at the end of the Human Rights Council session, so it's best to start your lobbying roughly 4 to 6 weeks before the UPR session. So for instance, for the upcoming May UPR session, you might want to start your lobbying at the end of March or beginning of April, especially given that the Human Rights Council session just wrapped up in the middle of March. For the January session, you can wait until the end of November, but keep in mind that in Europe, delegations go on vacation for most of December, so it's best to get your emails in before then. And then for the November UPR session, you can start right around the end of that Human Rights Council session, probably at the beginning of October, but mid-October, actually, yeah, probably right at the beginning of October. So what is electronic UPR advocacy? Well, it involves 2 steps. First, identifying countries to target that have shown interest or leadership on issues in your country. And secondly, sending emails to both the permanent missions in Geneva and the embassies of those countries within your country. You can also send emails to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Paris if you have contacts there, or any other contacts that you want to take advantage of. The emails will include more information about issues in your country, suggested recommendations, and also an ask or a request for a meeting with the diplomats to discuss the issues further. You can also include an invitation to a virtual side event where you can present the issues to your audience more in depth. So what is the goal of UPR advocacy? Well, as I mentioned previously, the ultimate goal is to get as many countries as possible to make recommendations on your issues during the interactive dialogue with your country's government. Recommendations from countries around the world help put pressure on your country to undertake obligations to create change. And secondly, as I mentioned, you'll want to put that ask into your email so that you can eventually set up a meeting with diplomats to talk further about your issues and to inform them about what's really going on the ground. So that concludes the first part of our series of trainings on electronic UPR advocacy. And up next is our training on identifying countries to target. If you have any questions concerning this overview, please contact us at hrights@adbrights.org. Thank you.